Well, thank you. And thank you to CIFMERS because of the invitation. If you don't mind, I'll speak in Spanish. That will be more fluent. So,
So, I'm going to present to you the consequences and main conclusions of a project that we developed over the last 4 years, as David said, entitled MFEM Goals Vigil. So, this is an Erasmus Plus project that aimed to enable the transition to digitization in the FM industry from the point of view of the academia, and also seeing how we could support that transition. The challenges we presented ourselves and the questions we made ourselves have to do with what you can see on the screen. How can the academia help in the development of these technological, of these digital technologies, and how we can take to the students' curricula at least the necessary knowledge on the main technologies that are, or the technologies that we consider to be more promising. The project was tried to give a response to certain challenges, such as identifying the main digital trends that could be applied, as well as identifying the trends. We also had to see the different tools that could be interesting for facility management, when we also wanted to see how we could get to know the level of usage or maturity or technological availability of all those technologies. And for that, what we did is we developed a methodology. We first looked at the scientific literature in the market, and then we did a global survey to classify those digital technologies and how they affected the different stakeholders. And we made a special emphasis on trying to identify the key technologies, so the most promising technologies at the time. And the outputs, well, reports, there are many reports, analyzing those digital trends, analyzing the technologies, analyzing the use maturity or that perception of maturity that the professionals and academia have, and those were the objectives we wanted to achieve. I'm going to give a very global overview of the project, but I'm going to focus mainly on the area where we generate more knowledge, which is the survey. The global survey analysis, well, we did a market research first, and we identified 25 technologies, digital technologies, that could have weight in the improvement of services within facility management. And based on those 25 technologies, we did our work. We wanted to know the perception the industry had, as well as the academia, and we divided it all in 5 main stakeholders that have to do with the client company, service providers, in the professional world, that then was subdivided into heads of department, the main offices of a company, middle management, and operational level. And in the academia, we spoke about the teachers, administration, and students. The survey was really simple. 3 minutes it took to fill it in, and probably you have already done it. It was basically 4 questions, 3 to try and locate the country, profession, and activity of the person specifically, and 1 question that was focused on trying to see the professionals or students and academia's perception about this topic. They were qualitative questions that allowed us to get to know more in depth the use, relevance, the use and relevance of technologies, to get to know also the knowledge and the interest that those technologies arose in people, or the lack of interest. So we launched the survey. We had a total of 4,008 responses, if I'm not wrong, coming from 105 countries, and the profiles, out of those 4,000, half of them came from Europe. 46% were from client companies, 42% globally, or well, 39% in Europe were service providers, and 12% or 16% in Europe were the academia. The main percentage came from the top managers, the top-level managers, which were mainly our main focus because we thought they could have a more strategic overview and therefore it could be more interesting for the future. Of the 105 countries, 34 were from Europe. And for the data analysis, and this is the key area, we developed a 4-step methodology. First, we analyzed the gross qualitative data obtained from the survey. Then we set a group of indicators that would allow us to measure very specific aspects we wanted to consider. Then a cross-analysis of all the information using the indicators that had been designed. And finally, analysis and conclusions. And there we also use another methodological tool that we've used, in fact, and that has been a great discovery because it's really effective, which is workshops. For the gross data analysis and the definition and design of the indicators, we worked with the first workshop. In the second workshop, we did all the cross-analysis and we reached to the conclusions that we wanted to reach in order to identify what technologies were highly recommended and should be included in the curricula of the students.
And besides, we've had other workshops that I'll talk about in a minute. Basically, in the gross information analysis, it allowed us to basically graphically and in percentage terms to extract the direct answers to the question that was asked. And it allowed us to have the answers profiles that we could compare among different stakeholders and in different conditions. For example, on the right, on the top right graph that you can see, we have the image of one of the technologies coming from one of the 25 reports, country reports or regional reports that we've been able to generate. This has been coordinated by us in-house. And out of the different technologies, we did a comparative analysis among the different profiles that allowed us to analyze the different perception that every stakeholder that we were studying has. And what the direct analysis of the data allows us to, well, has to do with the different profiles that in some way measure the knowledge and the sensitivity towards these technologies, that measure the use, that measure, for example, the perception differences between the academia and the professionals. And for example, the red lines have to do with the lack of knowledge of technology. And you can see that, generally speaking, the academy, teachers, researchers, and so on and so forth, have a lower level of this lack of knowledge. And for example, teachers in the academy at least state to have a higher use of these technologies. So the analysis that we can extract from these graphs is limited, and especially when setting comparisons with other countries, etc., is not very practical. And for that, we developed some indicators. Specifically, it has been 14 indicators that are compiled in 4 groups. One of them measures the level of knowledge or lack of knowledge of technologies. Other 6 that have to do with the use of digital technologies and the interest of or skepticism that these technologies provoke, and other indicators that measure the academic productivity, identifying what technologies are being taught in Europe, and 4 last indicators that have been maybe the most useful ones that have to do with the maturity perception of the academy, researchers, and the technology availability that is perceived among all of them. All these indicators have generated hundreds of graphs. We have just analyzed systematically the global results, the results in Europe, and the results in the 3 countries that were participating in the project: Germany, Finland, and Spain. And the type of information we have is measurements on a global scale and on scale of Europe. These are the graphs that I've brought. I haven't brought results by country, but we can see, for example, the level of awareness that people have about technologies, the lack of knowledge that exists. The ones that are least knowledge are, for example, digital twins, human augmentation, LIDAR, etc. We have the possibility of setting a hierarchy of these technologies, for example, comparing the use profile of the different stakeholders. We can see that academia declares a higher usage of these technologies than among the technologies group. For example, the integration of the Internet of Things and the data and data management applications. These are the ones most commonly used and the ones that are more interesting. And among the technologies that are more commonly used we can find BMS, apps, IAC, and BA systems in Europe. And maybe the ones that are less commonly used are human augmentations, holograms, generative design, and so on and so forth, basically as you can see on the graphs. And regarding the interest of these technologies, we could highlight, especially in Europe, that is quite similar to the rest, but here there's a similar difference. There's a significant difference, sorry, in what has to do with biometric systems. On a global scale, it is the 3rd technology that is the 3rd more interesting technology, and in Europe is the 7th or the 8th. And in the level of skepticism, we were surprised by the results, because technology, both on a global and European level, that was more higher level of skepticism we could see are the ones that you see there. And regarding drones and data management, according to the experts that collaborate in different workshops, these are technologies that were really interesting. Just not to bore you with the data, this last picture shows the results of maturity perception of the different stakeholders for every technology. So from higher to lower, in this case, in Europe the results are quite similar. The first ones are the same, and after that they change significantly. But when there's a comparison among the results in every country, we start to see important perception differences between different places. And the graph on the left are following the same order, and it allows us to compare technologies among themselves, basically. We can draw many conclusions with these data. Maybe the most relevant one and shocking one is the important difference that we have between the pink bar, that is the maturity perception of technologies by the academia, in yellow by researchers, and in these grainy blue by industry. And we can see that we have important differences that are being analyzed on the reports that we are creating. And on the workshop 2, we analyzed all the results with all our experts. And I have to say that every single workshop was 5 working sessions, 2 in Madrid, another one in Finland, another one in Germany, and there was an integration workshop to integrate all the conclusions. And we had around 40 experts in 4 workshops. So through the analysis, that was the main goal of this survey, through the analysis of what technologies were the most promising ones and which ones were really worthy to include in the curriculum, the final conclusion brought us to these 4 technology groups. It's not that they are recommended, but we suggest them as interesting: digital twins and business building information model, business tools, building automation systems and building management system, and everything that has to do with reality capture tools, with the 3D scanners, drones, micro drones, and IoT. And just to make the long story short, basically, on workshop 3, what we did was to identify what knowledge and what skills had to be developed among the students in order to acquire skills in these technologies, both on general and on particular terms. And surprisingly, what skills and knowledge the teachers needed. Because the teachers have experience, but they are not digital natives. And we had to start, well, in order to be able to convey all these knowledge and skills, we had to start by the teachers. On workshop 4, we deep dived on what teaching methods were the best ones to generate this knowledge, both in terms of traditional methodologies and innovative methodologies. And in the end, what keys we had to follow in order to accomplish this efficiency in this knowledge generation. And these conclusions were applied subsequently on an event with the students where a special workshop took place about the relationship between BIM and digital twins and what kind of information was important to be included in these tools and this information in quite an innovative way. And in the end, the experience was interesting, and it's going to be replicated in another activity with the European Space Agency during this year, this academic year, in the framework of other project, but including the experience of this Erasmus Plus project. The output is 6 reports where we will include the experience of these 3 years. Of course, it will be open and available for everybody. The IO2 has to do with the survey and the results analysis, and IO6 has to do with the final conclusions of the whole project and the general recommendations. Just to conclude, big ideas as headlines. Digitalization in FM is an irreversible process, and we have to adapt to it, and we need to be prepared for that. The role that the Academy plays is crucial, because we think that we not only have to train next generations, but also we need to foster a new way of work based on these technologies. The methodology that we followed has proven to be quite effective, and we are reasonably satisfied with the results obtained. Out of the survey results, we would highlight as main conclusions that there are important differences between the perception that the academia professionals have. Maybe the more realistic one would be the professionals, and there are important differences in industry. We can see a big difference between service providers and client companies. And last but not least, we would highlight that we don't have significant difference between Europe and the global indicators, although some indicators are different, with higher use of technology in Europe compared to other areas of the world. And we can see a significant difference when you start to analyze specific countries, there are important differences in terms of perception, and that would be it. The technology that I mentioned before that have to be included in students' curriculum. And thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm here for you. Thank you.